The message arrived at Earth's Deep Space Listening Post in the Antarctic on an ordinary Tuesday. Dr. Mira Kaczynski had been monitoring the usual background noise of the universe, pulsars, quasars, the cosmic whispers that had fascinated her since childhood. Then the signal came. Not random, not natural. A pattern so distinct it made her spill her coffee across her keyboard. "Someone call Director Okafor," she whispered, eyes fixed on the screen. Now, 12 hours later, the most brilliant minds on Earth crowded into a hastily established command center beneath Geneva. The message had been partially decoded, not words exactly, but mathematical sequences, universal constants, and embedded within them, images, terrible images of worlds burning, of civilizations falling one by one like dominoes across a stellar map leading directly to our solar system. "It's a warning," said Director Okafor, her usually steady voice wavering slightly. "And from what we can tell, whatever sent this is already on the move." Dr. Kaczynski nodded, pulling up the translation matrix her team had developed. "They call it the Shroud. It's consumed over 300 known civilizations in the last millennium alone. The message contains details from something called the Galactic Coalition, or the closest translation we have. On the main screen, images flickered of strange beings, some vaguely humanoid, others utterly alien, united in terror. Their worlds shone first in beauty, then in desolation. Not destruction as humans understood it, not nuclear fire or asteroid impacts, but something worse. Worlds drained of color, of life, of what the translation matrix kept interpreting as spark. "How long do we have?" asked General Wei, his weathered face impassive. "The message was sent 19 years ago," Kaczynski replied. "Based on the trajectory and speed indicated, perhaps 6 months before the Shroud reaches our system." The room fell silent. 6 months to prepare for something that had devoured civilizations far more advanced than Earth's. "What did they do?" asked a young physicist from MIT. "These other species, how did they fight it?" Director Okafor tapped her tablet, bringing up new images. "They tried everything we might imagine. Nuclear arsenals, antimatter weapons, some kind of directed energy technology we can barely comprehend. Nothing worked. Then why warn us at all?" General Wei's question hung in the air. The answer came 3 weeks later when the ships arrived. Not the Shroud, but survivors. 7 vessels of varied design, damaged and limping into the solar system at sublight speeds. They bypassed military installations and broadcast on all frequencies a single message in mathematical sequence, the same pattern from the warning. First contact happened not with presidents or generals, but with the international scientific team assembled to study the original message. Dr. Kaczynski stood beside Director Okafor as the alien delegation emerged from their shuttlecraft at a remote facility in the Atacama Desert. Their leader, if that was the right word, stood nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent skin that shifted colors with each movement. When it spoke, a device at its throat translated into a dozen Earth languages simultaneously. "We are what remains," it said simply. "The last of the coalition that once spanned half the galaxy. We come not to save ourselves, but to give you what we never had, a fighting chance." They called themselves the Ndovan, and they were but one of 14 species represented among the survivors. They'd brought data, terabytes upon terabytes of information about the Shroud, about the failed defenses, about everything they knew of the entity that had consumed their worlds. "It feeds," explained Kal, the Ndovan scientist who worked most closely with the human team. "Not on matter or energy as you understand them, but on something more fundamental. Consciousness," suggested Dr. Kaczynski. "Close," Kal replied, its skin rippling blue with what they'd learned was an expression of thoughtful consideration. "It consumes what makes sentient life unique in the universe: creativity, unpredictability, the spark that generates new ideas. It leaves behind only empty shells, beings that exist but no longer create or evolve." For weeks, the greatest minds of Earth and the surviving aliens worked together, analyzing the data, searching for any weakness in the seemingly unstoppable force heading toward them. They learned that the shroud was ancient, perhaps as old as the galaxy itself. It moved with purpose, selecting targets rich in diverse sentient life. It did not negotiate. It did not communicate. It simply came, enveloped and consumed. The breakthrough came not from the scientists or the military strategists, but from Maya Okafor's 16-year-old daughter, Zuri, who had been silently observing the proceedings during a school holiday. "You're all thinking like the Coalition," she said during a moment of frustrated silence. That's why they failed. All eyes turned to the teenager, who stood and walked to the holographic display, showing the shroud's predicted approach pattern. "Look at this," she continued, pointing to the simulations of previous civilizations' defense strategies. They all coordinated. United fronts, synchronized attacks, perfectly executed plans. And they all failed exactly the same way. Cal's skin flashed a curious yellow. Unity was our strength. Without coordination, there is only chaos. Exactly, Zuri smiled. Chaos. When was the last time the shroud encountered true chaos? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every civilization the shroud had encountered had followed the same pattern. Initial resistance, attempted negotiation, unified last stands, and finally, extinction. All logical, predictable responses from advanced, rational beings. But humans were different. Contradictory, irrational, chaotic. "What makes Earth special isn't our technology," Dr. Kaczynski said slowly, understanding dawning. "It's our disorganization, our inability to fully coordinate, our unpredictability." General Wei nodded, a slight smile forming. While the Coalition fought as one, humans would fight in 1,000 different ways simultaneously. Director Okafor looked at her daughter with pride. "The shroud expects patterns because that's all it's ever encountered. But humans break patterns as easily as we create them." Over the next months, as the shroud's approach was confirmed by deep space telescopes, Earth prepared, but not as the Coalition would have. There was no single unified defense plan, no coordinated global strategy. Instead, there were thousands of plans, some contradictory, some seemingly irrational, all designed to be unpredictable. Project Dawn, they called it. Not a weapon or a shield, but a mindset. Humanity would not stand as one. They would scatter like mercury, each droplet reflecting something different back at the shroud. Scientists developed technologies based on principles the aliens had never considered, not because they couldn't understand them, but because their logical minds never made the intuitive leaps that human creativity allowed. Artists created works designed specifically to be incomprehensible, to defy pattern recognition. Musicians composed pieces that broke every rule of harmony, yet somehow resonated with human emotions. "Your species is strange," Kyle told Dr. Kaczynski as they watched a rehearsal for a global broadcast that would serve as humanity's greeting to the shroud. "You embrace chaos. You find beauty in disorder. This may save you where logic failed us. Or it might fail just as spectacularly," Kaczynski admitted. "But at least we'll fail in our own uniquely human way." As the months passed and the shroud drew closer, Earth transformed. Not into a fortress, though military preparations continued, but into something else entirely. A planet-sized puzzle box of contradictions and creativity, of patterns that broke themselves, of order that collapsed into beautiful disorder. The aliens watched with growing hope as humanity prepared in ways they could never have imagined. For the first time since the shroud began its consumption of advanced civilizations, something new was about to happen. 1 week before the shroud's predicted arrival, Director Okafor addressed the United Nations General Assembly, with the alien survivors seated as honored guests. "We cannot guarantee victory," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But we can guarantee this: humanity will not go quietly. We will not follow the pattern of those who came before us. We will meet this threat as we have met every challenge in our history, with stubbornness, with creativity, with our unique human spark burning brighter than ever before. She paused, looking at Kyle and the other survivors. And if we succeed, it will not be humanity's victory alone. It will belong to all sentient life that refuses to be extinguished. In orbit, Earth's unified space fleet disbanded, scattering to positions that made no tactical sense to the alien observers. On the ground, people continued their lives, not in bunkers or in panic, but in a strange, determined celebration of human unpredictability. As the first tendrils of the shroud entered the outer solar system, wispy dark matter that seemed to bend light around it, Earth waited, not with one voice, but with billions, not with one plan, but with countless. The final countdown had begun. Humanity was about to face the greatest test in its history, armed with nothing but their inherent, beautiful chaos. The shroud arrived on a Sunday morning, Eastern Standard Time. Billions watched on screens around the world as the entity that had consumed hundreds of civilizations entered Earth's orbit. It defied easy description, not quite matter, not quite energy, but something between and beyond. From space, it appeared as a vast, shifting darkness that absorbed light rather than reflected it, with tendrils that reached out like curious fingers testing the atmosphere. What happened next was unprecedented in the shroud's ancient history. Instead of a coordinated defense or a unified attack, Earth responded with beautiful chaos. In orbit, satellites broadcast thousands of different signals simultaneously. Music, mathematics, poetry, nonsense. Military vessels followed no discernible formation, moving in patterns that even their own commanders couldn't predict, firing weapons that sometimes targeted the shroud directly and sometimes seemed to miss deliberately. On the ground, human civilization didn't shut down in terror. It exploded into frenzied activity. Street festivals erupted spontaneously in major cities. Artists covered buildings with murals that changed every hour. Musicians performed compositions that evolved based on real-time audience participation. "What are they doing?" asked Tavek, one of the Eridani survivors, its feathered sensory organs fluttering in confusion as it watched the displays from the monitoring station beneath Geneva. Dr. Kaczynski smiled grimly. Being human. For the first 12 hours, nothing seemed to happen. The shroud continued its approach, undeterred by the cacophony of human response. Its tendrils reached deeper into the atmosphere, probing, seeking, testing. According to all previous patterns, this was the beginning of the end, the first stage of consumption. Then something changed. The tendrils began to move erratically, withdrawing from some areas while surging forward in others. The main body of the shroud, which had maintained a steady advance for millennia, paused. "It's confused," Kyle whispered, skin flashing purple with astonishment. "I've never seen anything like this in all our records." Director Okafor leaned forward, eyes fixed on the monitors. "It's trying to find the pattern, the logic, the predictable response." And finding none, General Wei added with grim satisfaction. But the moment of hope was brief. The shroud adapted quickly, its tendrils regrouping, moving with new purpose toward major population centers. When they touched down, the effect was immediate and horrifying. People fell where they stood, not dead but empty, their bodies functioning but their minds wiped clean of creativity, curiosity, personality. "It's harvesting," Kale explained, skin darkening to a mournful blue. "Taking what it came for." From orbit, satellite imagery showed the tendrils spreading like ink through water, following major highways and communication lines between cities. Traditional defenses proved useless. Missiles passed through the shroud harmlessly. Energy weapons were absorbed without effect. In Geneva, the command center received desperate reports from around the world. Moscow had fallen silent. Beijing was going dark sector by sector. The eastern seaboard of the United States was being systematically drained. "This isn't working," Dr. Kaczynski said, despair creeping into her voice. "It's adapting to our chaos, finding the patterns underneath." "No," Zuri Okafor said firmly, pointing to a different set of monitors. Look at Brazil. Look at New Zealand. Look at Nigeria. In these regions and scattered pockets elsewhere, something strange was happening. The shroud's tendrils would approach, then withdraw as if burned. In some cases, they seemed to recoil entirely, retreating back toward the main body. What's different about those areas? General Wei demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source, Captain Lion Park of the Korean contingent, who had been silently monitoring communications from the Asian sector. Emotion, she said simply. The strongest reactions are coming from places where people aren't just being random. They're feeling intensely. It was true. In Brazil, carnival celebrations had transformed into passionate displays of defiance. In New Zealand, Maori warriors performed haka of such power that the very ground seemed to vibrate. In Nigeria, communities had come together in ceremonies that blended ancient traditions with modern expressions of collective will. It's not just chaos the shroud can't process, Dr. Kaczynski realized. It's emotion. Genuine, raw human emotion. Cal's skin rippled with sudden understanding. The coalition worlds, we prided ourselves on rationality, on logical, measured responses. Even our art, our music, it was all created within careful parameters. But humans feel messily, Zuri said. We love messily. We hate messily. We hope and fear and dream messily. Director Okafor was already on the Global Command channel. All sectors, this is Director Okafor. New strategy. Emotion, not just chaos. I repeat, focus on emotional expression. Music, art, prayer, protest, whatever generates the strongest collective feeling. This is not a drill. Across the world, the strategy shifted. Military operations continued, but alongside them, a new kind of defense emerged. In London, thousands gathered in Trafalgar Square, not to hide but to sing, old folk songs, national anthems, rock ballads, anything that stirred the soul. In Mumbai, Bollywood stars led massive dance performances that expressed every human emotion from joy to heartbreak. In Cairo, ancient chants mingled with modern protest songs. The shroud's advance slowed, then stalled. Its tendrils began to withdraw from areas of intense emotional expression, recoiling as if from acid. For the first time in its ancient existence, it encountered something it couldn't simply consume: the raw, unfiltered emotional landscape of humanity. It feeds on ordered thought, Cal theorized, watching in amazement as the data came in. Logical patterns, rational creativity. It drains these like nectar. But human emotion, especially collective emotion, is too chaotic, too primal. Not just chaotic, Dr. Kaczynski corrected. Powerful, authentic, real in a way that transcends logical patterns. The turning point came 52 hours after the shroud's arrival. In a desperate gamble, Earth's remaining military forces executed what seemed like a suicidal strategy. They flew directly into the main body of the shroud, not to attack, but to broadcast. Each vessel carried not weapons but artists, musicians, poets, ordinary people with extraordinary emotional stories to tell. From within the darkness, they transmitted not data or strategic information, but human experiences in their rawest form. A mother's grief for her lost child, a refugee's memory of home, a lover's passion, a soldier's courage, a child's wonder at the universe. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The shroud convulsed, its vast form rippling like disturbed water. The darkness began to thin, becoming translucent in places. Light passed through where before there had been only absence. It's working, General Wei said in disbelief. It's actually working. For 3 more days, the battle, if it could be called that, continued. Human emotional expression versus the ancient, consuming hunger of the shroud. It wasn't a clean victory or a decisive one. The shroud didn't explode or dissolve dramatically. Instead, it gradually retreated, pulling back from Earth's atmosphere, withdrawing its tendrils from the ground. Those already touched by the shroud remained changed. Their creative spark dimmed, though not extinguished. But billions more remained untouched, their humanity intact, their emotions burning bright against the darkness. 1 week after its arrival, the shroud left Earth's orbit, moving away from the solar system at increasing speed. Long-range sensors tracked its retreat, confirming what seemed impossible. Humanity had repelled what hundreds of advanced civilizations could not. In the aftermath, Earth was changed. The knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, that threats existed beyond imagination, transformed human society overnight. But so did the understanding of what had saved them, not technology or weapons, but humanity itself. The very messiness, the emotional complexity that humans had sometimes seen as weakness, had proven to be their greatest strength. In the command center beneath Geneva, now serving as the headquarters for Earth's new extraterrestrial relations division, Director Okafor addressed the assembled alien survivors. "We offer you sanctuary," she said simply. "Earth is now your home too, if you wish it." Cal stepped forward, its skin shifting through colors that had no name in human language. "We offer something in return. The knowledge of our civilizations, our technologies, our histories, everything we saved from the shroud's consumption. And we offer our commitment to learning what you have to teach." "What could we possibly teach beings who cross the stars?" asked Dr. Kaczynski. "How to feel again," Kyle replied. "How to embrace the chaos within order. How to create not just with logic, but with passion." The alliance that formed in the months following the shroud's retreat was unlike anything either humans or the alien survivors had imagined. Earth became a beacon in the galaxy, not for its technology, which still lagged behind what the Coalition had achieved, but for its unique approach to existence. Word spread through the stars. The planet that had repelled the shroud. The species that turned emotion into a weapon. The civilization that embraced chaos as a strength. 2 years after the shroud's retreat, the first diplomatic mission from Earth departed for the nearest star system known to harbor intelligent life. Led by Dr. Mira Kaczynski and accompanied by Kyle and other Coalition survivors, they carried no weapons, no traditional displays of power. Instead, they brought art, music, poetry, stories, the full spectrum of human emotional expression, carefully preserved and ready to share. As their ship accelerated toward the stars, Kyle approached Dr. Kaczynski on the observation deck. "The shroud will return someday," the alien said quietly. "It has fed for millennia. It will not abandon its nature entirely." "I know," Kaczynski replied, watching Earth recede behind them. "But next time, it won't face humanity alone." "No," Kyle agreed, its skin glowing with the warm orange the humans had learned signified hope. "Next time, it will face a galaxy that has learned to feel again." Below them, Earth continued its rotation, billions of lives continuing their beautiful, chaotic dance. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the shroud drifted, diminished but not destroyed, encountering for the first time in its ancient existence something it could not understand or consume. The lingering echo of human emotion, a new pattern to ponder, a new chaos to fear. The galaxy had lived in fear for too long. Now it learned to hope. Humanity had responded, and the universe would never be the same.